All right, welcome to a very special edition of We Are Soccer. Today, I'm lucky to have Midwest Regional Scout Brooks Laimbeer Jr. with us. Brooks, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it, and I hope your day's been pretty good so far.
Absolutely, it has. It's getting better because we're just going to be talking soccer. And I'm joined by special guest, or we'll just call you co-host.
Yeah, I like to be special.
Yeah.
Or I could be a or just
Let's go
general.
Let's go with co-host.
Lackey in the back.
So, obviously, Brooks, soccer scout. You scout for professional teams. This is something I've been involved with soccer for 30 plus years. I've played, I've coached, I've reffed, you name it, I've done it. Yeah. The only thing I now have a soccer show. The only thing I haven't done is scout. And this intrigues me wildly. How you got into it, what do you do, how many soccer, so many questions. Yeah. Let's just jump right in. How did you get into becoming a soccer scout?
Sure, yeah. So, let's just kind of start from the beginning. So,
yeah.
Growing up, I played 3 sports: basketball, baseball, soccer. A lot of pickup for basketball and such. But, I carried those 3 sports really until high school. I went to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, so we usually have a good football and basketball program.
Mm-hmm.
My mom wouldn't let me play football or hockey because her brothers always played hockey, and just the physicality of the game she wasn't crazy about. But I loved baseball and soccer. I think baseball was my first passion I had. I had a cousin who lived out in St. Clair Shores, and he was a great high school baseball player. The Yankees were looking at him like that's how good he was. My uncle was a very good baseball player himself. He had a trial with the Tigers. They asked him to come back. He never did. So there was always kind of a what would have happened scenario with that if he did go back. But anyways, don't want to digress too much. Yeah, this tangent, right? For me, I've grown up playing soccer, and then kind of my high school career was done. I kind of from middle school to kind of in between high school, I stopped to play travel baseball a bit because it was hard to pick. Like I wanted to be good at both sports, sure. But just unfortunately, I just thought baseball at the time. And anyway, so I played in high school. I could have played D3 soccer. I did 2 years of varsity soccer at St. Mary's when they brought the program back my junior year. And I just kind of said, hey, I don't want to play D3 soccer. My mom was just like, let's work on my education. Both my parents were very, big on education. So, going to Michigan State, kind of deciding, hey, journalism's always something I wanted to do. 5 or 6 years old, I was that kid that watched Sports Center.
Yep.
Any sports highlight recap show I could watch from 5 until even now. I don't watch Sports Center as much, but through Twitter and just following everything. And my mom was the parents how can you remember all these stats and everything, but you can't remember anything in science class or math class. And oh man, it was some of the stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so I get to Michigan State, and I do the journalism degree. I intern for the State News first semester, but where I got back into the passion of soccer was, kind of watching the EPL again and just kind of realizing, hey, there's a lot of stuff I've noticed that I really never noticed playing as a kid, just because, I think kids a lot watch the game because they're fans. They don't watch to learn. But that's how I was with baseball, though. I'd always watch, when I watched the Tigers, whoever, I'd always want to learn, what were the pitchers doing? How were they changing speed? Where were they throwing the ball in the count and such. So, I get to Michigan State, and luckily I got to work for the student radio station, WDBM, and they brought in a sports program there. And I covered the men's and women's soccer team for, 2.5, 3 years. I did a little freelance work after I graduated from Michigan State, and into the scouting part, I took a class through called Sports Management Worldwide, and it's a company based in Portland, Oregon. And they have different professional classes you can take. They have agency courses, front office stuff. They have all these different things. And what's nice about it is you work with people in the field that run the classes. Mm-hmm. So what was fun is the scouting and soccer management class was run by my friend Matt Martin, but also a guy named John Print who does agency stuff in England. He's involved with the game a lot, and Tommy Smith was one of the guest guys. That was pretty fun, picking nice. Tommy's brain a bit.
Sure, yeah.
So anyway, Matt knew I had done all this stuff in college, so we talk about players in the Big Ten and some of the other guys I had seen the guys like Harry Shipp at Notre Dame, Christian Roldan at Washington, Fatai Alashe at Michigan State, you name it. I mean, we can spend 20 minutes going through probably a lot of the guys I saw play in college when I was just doing the journalism work. So I interned. He said he wanted to come on to the Portland Timbers. He had just moved at that point from Sporting KC to Portland. And Matt has been in the business for a while. He scouted for New York Red Bull, Sporting KC, RSL, Portland, and then the other guy I can jump into. Just I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but the guy for the Soccer Syndicate, the other co-owner, Scott Resendez, started the MLS Players Union. He was the GM for the Wilmington Hammerheads in the old USL, so the original one that Dan Duggan wanted to get in, and the Silver Dome and that. And then he was just a few years ago, he was the GM of OKC Energy.
Okay.
In USL Championship. So those are the two guys I work with. Anyway, so I interned for Portland. And then Matt said, do you want to join the staff? We have no one in the Midwest. So I was like, why not? And it's kind of been an interesting story from there, I guess, right?
Yeah. So when you're scouting, are you scouting for the Portland Timbers and the Thorns, or is it just the Timbers, or is it both the men's and the women's, or how's that work?
Yeah, so it was just the Portland Timbers. Okay. So NWSL and women's soccer, it's a little different.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of money in the game.
Yeah.
As we know, it's still growing,
right.
but it's great to see how much it's growing.
Absolutely. Yep.
And what the women's national team has done, and the equal pay, and like I said, I'm a big believer in that with the women in the national team. But unfortunately, the women's side, I mean, it's also another animal on its own where, we'd have to collect the data, and these guys I came to work with have been scouting. I mean, Matt saw Graham Zusi at the University of Maryland. I'm talking Maurice Adu, he saw a lot of guys growing up, when he started the business of Red Bull, I'm talking about that's how long he's been scouting for. So, we just did the Timbers. So we did college scouting. 1 year we helped with youth scouting. We worked with Larry Sunderland, who was the former academy director of Portland. He's now at FC Cincinnati.
Okay.
So we did a little youth scouting for 1 year. That was interesting, because college was so much of our focus. Youth scouting tends to be a little different. You're trying to predict what, how a kid's going to project, as he gets older.
Right.
It was tough. There was really no base of operations of it. Matt had an idea, and our buddy Joey on the West Coast who live in California had an idea of what to do for youth scouting. But it was a tough time because we were so focused on college, and sometimes the two overlap at times. So
I know a lot of people probably understand how scouting works for, we'll say football, not soccer, but football, American football, right? So these guys, they kind of travel around. They watch a lot of high school games. They watch a lot of youth games, and there's a lot of traveling, a lot of notes, and there's a lot of that going on for we'll call it the big American sports, right? Soccer's not quite a big American sport. It's getting there. It'll be in the top four soon, I have no doubt. But how is it? Are we envisioning the way you scout? Is it similar to that? You travel a lot of games, a lot of high school games, a lot of youth games, college games. On an average, how many games of soccer are you traveling and watching in person a week?
Sure, yeah. So I'll give you an example. This fall, since our company, we're contracting with different clients, MLS, USL, NISA. We're looking to do some international clients as well. For the top level youth guys to see, the Pulisics of the world and whatnot, if they can get over to Germany, or we're looking into that area as well because Scott and Matt have a lot of connections. But so let's just give it, for instance, I've got my scouting schedule done, so it was probably between 25 and 40 games I can go to, at least. So listen, you're seeing a couple teams multiple times, and obviously we have a budget, so you have to stay within that budget.
Sure.
Just because we're a small company at the moment. So yeah, I probably for college games, it'll probably get between 25 and 30 this year, and that's locally.
Yep.
I may go down to an Xavier. Usually I go down to IU for their tournament, the Credit Union Classic, because they'll play, West Coast teams will come over and play in that. This year it's Creighton. I think Creighton and Xavier playing it this year, and we have guys that live over by Georgetown and such, and that's the Big East, so they can kind of cover that. But so usually I'm going to different colleges. It could be IU, Butler. I usually let the Chicago teams come towards me, just because that's quite an expensive trip with the tolls and the driving and everything. And then you have to stay overnight and whatnot. I mean, I have some friends that live in Chicago, but still, it's expensive. Yep. Obviously always going to OU, Michigan State, Western Michigan, Bowling Green.
Are you hitting up the big colleges within Michigan? Michigan State, U of D, Oakland University, U of M, and then we've got some smaller colleges that produce some players, right? Like Calvin College, and then there's 3 or 4 small D2, D3 schools that I've seen a lot of good players come out of here as well.
Yeah, mostly it's D1. Now, if we get we hear about a guy that plays well, like USL2 in the summer, NPSL or not, we'll make sure one of us gets out there and we can, I can see a guy like Saginaw Valley, SVSU has some good talent. NAIA, there's a school called Lindsey Wilson, in Kentucky, which produces a lot of good players.
A lot of players that have come out of there, some good players.
Yeah. So we'll try to get out there and see them. If not, we'll try every summer to see these guys if they continue to go back to the same program or not. So
what are you looking for when you go watch a game? Have you already? So let's just say Michigan State, the universities are playing in the next couple of weeks, and if you go to that game, do you already have an idea of 2 or 3 players you're going to look for or watch, or are you going into it with an open mind? What's the thinking on that?
Yeah, so what I always like to do is listen. We at the soccer scene, we have a national shadow team, of all the players, and I'm talking about all D1 players, and there's some NAI and D2 players across the country of all. I mean, that thing can get, that database is 400 players at least. And then you got to rack and stack, and you got to make sure, hey, which one, where do they fall? Who's the top guy at each position and everything. So, when I see a team I normally don't see, I'll look at that shadow team, but I don't do any crazy research, because sometimes for scouting, it's good to go in just blind.
Sure.
Because you don't have a perception of a player. Yep. So you're not looking for certain things. You just watch him, how he plays in the game, because overall, that's what you want to see. How do you play in the game, and how consistent are you?
Yep.
Obviously for guys like Michigan State and Michigan, I know those rosters. I've seen those guys.
You know those rosters up and down, right?
Oh yeah, and Oakland and Western. I saw some of those guys. It's funny. I'm getting this where I saw some of these guys at U15, 16, like the Kevin Bukas of the world at Michigan, or the Chase Inchos, Josh Adams at Michigan State. Oakland, there's some guys at Oakland I've seen in the academy or just the USYS level. So yeah, some guys going in, and you're looking to see how they take that next step up in the next level. Sure. But yeah, sometimes you go in with research, but I usually like to go in blind.
Try going blind so you don't have a perception, right?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So while you're out there, if I'm a player, obviously younger, not me, not and more athletic, probably not as big. How do I catch your eye? If I'm out there, if you're a player, and I, don't give all your secrets, obviously, but if I'm a player, if I'm out there, and I know there's coaches or scouting staff. Yeah. What would be your tips, I guess, to those players if you could pull them aside even before, if you could have that one-on-one? What is that thing that they could do to catch the eye, whether simple or complex?
Sure, yeah. So I'll give you a great example. So this last weekend, I got to work ODP as an evaluator. I know Mark Zathi. I coached a little at Michigan Rush. I was an assistant coach, and I've done assistant coaching in other places. And Z lets me go work ODP, and it's a great place to find, kids that have been missed. So I worked with the 2008, 2006 groups. And listen, we break them up, and you have small teams first, and then you split them into, the trial process goes. You guys know. So, I just tell the kids, listen, one, you need to play consistent. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm looking for consistency in your game. You don't have to be the flashiest player, but you need to play consistently through each match. But the biggest thing, and soccer today asks you, is you need to defend. If you don't defend, how can I put you anywhere on the field? Like, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're a center forward, you still have to defend because everyone presses. Wingers, same thing. Midfielders are the big one. You just can't be fancy and get the ball and spray it around the field and everything. Right. You need to be gritty and you need to be able to defend. So those are a few. Listen, basic technical skills. I mean, soccer's an interesting sport. I've seen guys like Brandon Bye and DeJuan Jones play. I think these guys are good examples of this. Jake Nwsl at UConn's a good one example as well, who plays for the Whitecaps. Some guys are very athletic, but when they're coached as youth players, they're just told, hey, go forward, dribble, get in behind. But they don't work on their basic technical skills of how to get out of pressure. Can we use both feet? Can I shoot with both feet? Stuff that Aaron Bird does. I mean, I know Aaron very, very, very well, and we talk about this stuff all the time. Him and I just kind of like assess and evaluate players, and he'll tell me the guys he trains, and I'll kind of ask what's the feedback, and I'll give him feedback. But you need to be able to do the basic skills, and that's super, super important because as you go up in level, the basic skills become just that much more important. Because listen, how many guys do we see that are athletic at 10? That make it all the way up to the pro level and are still the most dominant player? Because at some point you're going to run into an athlete that's just as athletic as you, that's a defender, that you can't blow by the guy anymore. You can't push the ball by him. You can't just run by him. So I think with DeJuan and Brandon's case, as they were wingers in college, I think DeJuan was probably a little more technical player than Brandon was. But listen, when they got to New England, Brandon had Brad Friedel for a year, and then DeJuan did for partially, and then Bruce Arena kind of said, hey, Brandon already made the transition to right back, and then, DeJuan is the left back now, which is great for him because he's, right-footed, inverted left back, but he's done a phenomenal job. But you can see as, when you're super athletic, and the same goes with Jake Nwsl and why he's kind of losing time at times at Vancouver, is if you can't do the basic technical skills, like how do I find a place for you on the field, especially at the higher levels. So I think that, I don't know if that's a good example or it's a good for answer your question of any other in-depth.
We're gonna jump even further into that. So I'm hearing consistent grit, technical basics, boom, fundamental, there's your pillars. Okay. You caught the Gold Cup?
Yeah.
Craig caught the Gold Cup, and I caught the Gold Cup. We all watched it. We all saw the players that were playing there, some of them a little bit new to the program. If you're like a scout, which one of those players, in your eyes, jumping out, poised to be possibly the next great thing?
The next great one, huh?
Using your pillars of consistency. So now I asked you what it was. Now let's apply it.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes.
Listen, they've talked about this kid for years, and I was lucky to see him a few times at Syracuse, was Miles Robinson. I think he's a great example, too. He's an athlete, but he was a basketball player, but you can see how good of a 1v1 defender he is, and you can leave him in open space, but it's hard to beat him, and he can play in a 3-back, he can play in a 2-back, he's got some versatility, and that's another key thing I would say, too, with the kid is how versatile can you be? Because, listen, like I mentioned with DeJuan and Brandon, you may be a winger up through middle school to high school to college, but once you get to that next level, we're looking at positions as scouts, we're looking, hey, can you switch positions maybe, and are you willing to do it?
Right.
And you have to have the willingness to do it. Be unselfish, take one for the team. And listen, I've talked to Brandon and DeJuan, and they're very nice guys, and that's what they are. They're unselfish people that are willing to do more for the team than for themselves. And character is a big thing I would add to is you need to have character.
One. Yeah, write that down.
If you don't have character,
sure.
If you don't have character, and this is funny, it's a team sport. There are 11 people on the field. There's 22 in total, but there's 11 teammates. You need to be very unselfish and have some character because, what you do, dictate on the field dictates what other people do as well.
Yep.
So, back to the Gold Cup question. I think Miles Robinson's an interesting one. Goalkeeper Matt Turner.
Okay.
That guy came out of nowhere, and look what he's done. I think he could easily compete with Stefan for the starting job if you look at it.
Yep. I've said if you remove where Stefan plays.
Yeah,
that's I think the only thing, and that you can't discount that. But really, how much between what you've seen between Stefan and Turner in these last
And I saw Zach at Maryland for a year when he was there for 1 year. I remember that. And I mean, listen, Zach's a great athlete, and he's definitely improved his game. But I mean, like I said, consistency, right? Like, there's just times where sometimes Zach's just not as consistent, and Matt's been on a great streak with the New England Revolution. And you can you can go on this tangent of like he plays in MLS, like it's not as good. And sure, like you could say that, but listen, you're again consistency,
right?
And that's what Berhalter wants, for the guys he's going to pick for the World Cup qualifiers and in the World Cup squad if they make it. You want consistent players that you can trust, and that's where character comes in too.
So I do want to ask you a question on that. The hot topic in a lot of sports talk, soccer talk shows in the past 2 weeks has been, who is the number one keeper? Should it be Stefan? Should it be Turner? Could it be Horvath? Who would you, if there's a game, the first World Cup qualifying game coming up in September for the USA, who, if everybody's healthy, who's your number one keeper?
Turner.
Turner for sure, huh?
Yeah.
No doubt there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it speaks volumes too of what Kellen Acosta did for Matt at the end of that game and end of regulation. He's like, here, Matt, like take the armband, man. You're the leader, man. And he's like, he felt it on his shoulders, but he stepped up when things need to happen.
That speaks of some of the character of Kellen Acosta. Like,
yes.
Hey, man, let's do this. I'm going to give you this, and that's a huge thing. Nate and I are huge fans of Kellen Acosta. We really like watching him play in the middle. And I think this Gold Cup, the Nations League game, and then this Gold Cup tournament, I think a lot of people are now, whoa, Kellen Acosta. Holy crap, we never really heard of this guy, and all of a sudden, he's been there, and this is what he's done.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Kel, because he got to train with Aaron, and I got to meet Kellen when he was still with FC Dallas, and listen, like, people see him in interviews, like, high character guy.
Yeah.
And he needed a change from FC Dallas, and I think Colorado Rapids were a great change, and he was out of the national team for a couple years, and he's back in, and listen, and I think what's great about, and again, versatility, Kellen can go play left back or right back for you. He's willing to do it. So, but yeah, you're right. Kellen, outstanding guy.
Big character, has really shown that he can hold his own and be a big player in big games. He has aspirations of going to Europe. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago now, right after the Nations League victory. He joined us, and good dude, great dude, humble.
Yes.
So humble, so humble. Let me ask you a quick question here. All right, so in the state of Michigan, you've seen a lot of the college players, you've seen a lot of the big names. Is there one person you think stands out and has a real shot at making it as a stud professional player? I mean, in a good MLS or going to Europe, and we're going to know his name in a couple of years.
So currently, like on Western, everyone.
Yeah. Is there
Let me help here.
Yeah.
Besides Craig's son.
Yeah, I was going to go with me.
Craig. Oh,
my son? No, me.
Well,
you don't have to mention me. Like we all know.
Yeah. Besides Craig,
is there one person right now that you say this is the head and shoulders? He is gonna be the player from Michigan in a couple of years. Everybody's gonna go that guy.
In my opinion, I would say no from the colleges.
Okay.
So I think this gets back to just kind of the scouting in general. Is if you look at the college game, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can make that huge jump from like MLS, or and there may be some guy. I mean, you get some academy guys that come in that play for a year or so, and then maybe they don't sign the homegrown deal and they head over to Europe. I mean, that's a common thing.
Yeah.
I mean, right now for me, I don't see anything at the moment.
Okay.
It doesn't mean there can't be.
Right.
It doesn't mean a guy can't make that jump from his freshman to sophomore and make a huge jump. Or I think a guy that I love to kind of talk about a lot is I got to see in college was Chris Mueller at Wisconsin. Okay. And I bought his book, Bet on Yourself, which it's a great book. I've started reading it, and he talks about his experiences at Wisconsin. And he's like, yeah, my first years I was kind of going out and partying a bit. I wasn't really focused, and he started reading books a little bit about psychology and sports psychology and such, and self-help kind of books. And his junior year he really took off. And I remember, like, I didn't know much about Chris. He didn't really stand out too much. Sophomore year and junior year, just boom. It
kind of took it a little bit more serious, and then all of a sudden it just started applying that, right? And that can happen. So and I mean, and not to say you're wrong, but there could be some players out there that do exactly that. So let's talk. You mentioned Michigan State standout player DeJuan Jones, currently playing in the MLS for New England.
Yeah.
There are rumors of him possibly heading over to Europe. There's some interest there. Is that something you saw coming, or is he just kind of buckled down and started to make that learn and grow into that league? Because anytime you join a new team or new league, it takes a little bit of time to get to that. Every time you go up a level, the speed gets quicker. The thinking has to get quicker, right? So has he just taken a little bit of time to get to that, and now that he's there, he's like, I got this, and he's showing it?
Yeah. Yeah, with Dewan, I mean, listen, I think the biggest thing is, and this interesting is, when we were talking about Dewan, as in a group, my buddy Andre, who scouts, he lives by UNC, NC State. He's in the ACC region over there. He saw Dewan play a little bit, and he's like, listen, like, I think this guy, he's an outside back at the next level. And, sometimes I scout him so much that sometimes I never think about that. And that's what's great about having a group of 4 or 5 guys at the soccer syndicate is we bounce ideas off each other and we say, hey, like, maybe this guy needs to move. And listen, like, Andre was right with the first step. He's an outside back. And then, listen, it was Dewan on his own that really has progressed his career. And, listen, it's the guys in college. I'll tell this, if any of the guys watch this, is that, listen, like, you get out of college what you put into it. And the same thing is when you're a pro. You get out of it what you put into it. And I think that's what Dewan's done. He's listened to Bruce Arena. He's watched. I'm sure he's probably watched a lot of film, and he's spoken to a lot of those guys in the Revs, just to get feedback and ideas and such. And listen, he's taken it. And listen, again, he's an athlete, so that helps as well. Speed definitely helps. Yep. But I mean, I've watched him progress with New England, a lot. He's coming inside the game more. He's kind of being what a lot of those European coaches like to do. So he has some traits that are very interesting. And listen, I would love to see him in the Bundesliga. Yeah, and listen, like, I mean, I'll be humble and admit that I didn't know that was his next step, because it's hard to tell sometimes. And
again, it's not that you missed it. It's just that he made the next step probably by himself. He buckled down and just got to it.
Yep.
It's happened to me several times. The first several weeks, months, or a year at a level, it takes a while to adjust, and then you get comfortable and you take it on, right?
Yep.
So how much European, how much EPL, Bundesliga soccer do you watch? Do you watch a ton of it?
When I can. So, I'm obviously with the scouting stuff. With a little pro, I try to watch, Nwsl, USL, Championship, League One. I do love to watch the Bundesliga. Borussia. Yeah, I know you are. Lewandowski at Bayern. My mom's Polish on that side, so I love watching Lewandowski.
Nice. So why is Stuttgart your favorite team? And would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit trail.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite team, or a team that you prefer? Obviously, Nate is a Stuttgart. It's unbelievable, right? Nate's a Stuttgart. Can you believe it, fan?
Yeah.
I'm an Aston Villa fan. Is there a team you have an affinity for?
Dortmund. I mean, when Pulisic went over there, but I loved how Thomas Tuchel would play. He'd be really creative, and I mean, look what Tuchel's done at Chelsea, right? I mean, that's been pretty outstanding. And listen, he wasn't a high-level pro player, but that goes to show you that not every high-level coach needs to be a high-level player, right?
I think some of the best coaches in the world were just average or below-average players. I mean. I hate to bring up the name, but Jose Mourinho was never a top player. He was a below-average player, but all of a sudden he goes to places and he wins trophies, except for Tottenham.
So you guys saying I have a chance?
No, you. Yeah, I mean, how's your U8 team going to do this year?
Win the Bundesliga.
That's what I figured. Speaking of that, like, what is the age that you start to kind of track scout kids for scouting? Right? Like, what is the age in Europe? There's a saying that's going around that if you haven't been spotted by the age of 10, you should probably just give up and do something else. I don't believe in that 100%. But what is the age where you start to go, hey, this I'm going to go out and watch a U13, U14? What's that age that you go and start putting these kids and names down?
Yeah. So like probably the distinction between Europe and North America, I think people need to understand, is that Europe is so much smaller, if realistically compared to the United States. I mean, there are places that scouts don't even get to, that like teams from like South Dakota, North Dakota have to get the regionals for me to even know about a kid, because it's so vast. It costs so much money to travel to places and such. So I mean, listen, like U13. I mean, I've thought about maybe is the last year 9v9 a good one. I mean, it's tough. Some kids haven't really developed. They're still growing. 13 is the first year, 11v11, so that's always the interesting part to it as well. So 13 for me. And listen, like watching all levels, and that's the crazy part about this country is we have so many different leagues of youth soccer, and to me it's a little absurd.
Yeah,
to be honest
agreed,
with you, for me I just wish all the pro teams that have academies, so it doesn't matter if you're Nwsl, USL, or MLS, you're in the academy league, and then USYS just has the rest of the teams. It would make life so much easier for scouts. Listen, I know ECNL's done great things for the girls and such. It's just easier if there were two big youth leagues rather than just one. And for me, I know a lot of the MLS Next kids. So I started in the spring/fall last year when I could go out to games outdoors. Just watching MLS Next teams. So Wolves, Vardar, all the teams they played in their group, in their region. Chicago Sockers, Fire, Crew.
Jags.
Yes, Jags. Yep, I did. I watched the 13s and 14s. Oh yeah, yep. And Scobie and Pete and all those guys know are out there, of course. Same with Lars and Morris and such for Vardar. 13 is probably the age, and then listen, you're probably looking between. We have an MLS Academy. I mean, they might not take a kid at 17 and maybe a little too late because MLS is changing things a little bit. What their academy setups is, they're not going from 13 to 19 anymore. They're kind of doing 13, 14. 15, they skip the 16 age, they go 17, and then some teams are getting rid of their 18, 19s because of this new reserve league that's going to pop in. So if you're a top 17, down the road, and they have this new MLS reserve league, this U23 league they're creating in the spring, your best 17s and 18s are going to go play with that. They can still maintain their college eligibility if they want, or eventually if they're good enough, they could sign for that team and then work their way up in the pyramid. So. But yeah, I think
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's something I'm hitting upon that you just said is there's a lot of leagues. In
Yes.
Europe, there's probably not so many leagues. It's just play here. It's just there's so many leagues. There's always they're always changing it, right? And it'd make your life and everybody's probably life a lot easier if it was just a solid standard of leagues. But it's not the way it's done here in the U.S. and we'll adapt. I mean, we could go on forever. We could talk. I got so many more questions, so we're gonna have to have you back on the show.
Okay.
We got to get you on because I think we can go in. We can dive deeper. I would love to. I know Nate's probably furiously writing down more questions and things.
All Stuttgart related.
All Stuttgart related, obviously.
I just want to know because you probably do a lot of travel. Yeah. What's your favorite place to go? Just because the Red Roof Inn is nice or something. What is your favorite place to? Just curiosity.
Yeah. So college venue or youth or both?
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm just I thought it'd be a fun one.
Yeah. So listen, Grand Park's always a fun place to go to scout games. I mean, listen, that place is just in Westfield, just outside north of Indianapolis, is crazy just with all the turf fields, grass fields, indoor facilities they have. Obviously Indy 11 use that same complex Indiana Fire do. So that's always fun. That was great. A couple years ago when I got to watch when was the USSDA before MLS Next happened, they had the Academy playoffs and showcase there. College, there's a lot of unique fields in college. I mean, listen, I'm a Michigan State guy. I love DeMartin. How could you not? It's next to the Red Cedar River. It's
DeMartin's
so
a great
scenic.
Stadium, but do you remember the old stadium?
No, I was I've seen photos though, and I hear stories like the mobile press box and
box, the tree that overhung. So sometimes the ball would clip a branch to just go out for a throw in. But we also heard a lot of the teams like Wisconsin and Indiana, they love to come play at Old College Field because it just had this unique setting. It was a beautiful field as well. Yeah. But DeMartin's very nice.
Yeah. Northwestern is a great one because it's right in the lake. Now, obviously, you don't want to be there in October when it's windy and cold, but, I mean, beautiful view.
It's tough.
And then, Armstrong, obviously, with IU and, the Chicago schools, Loyola and Chicago and DePaul have interesting ones because they share softball fields with it. That's always interesting. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot I can go on and on about. Obviously, Louisville, it's like a pro stadium essentially. I mean, Louisville City, they've played the USL Championship game there a few years back, and I mean, the Lynn family's done great stuff in the city of Louisville. But yeah, that's a great stadium as well. Louisville.
You're gonna have to book me in for one of the two of these games where you go to because I would love to sit next to you and see the notes you take.
Sure.
And to be able to hear the thinking that you've got about players and plays, and so we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Kind of an off-site one here.
Of course.
So I think we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciate it. We're going to have to get you back on. I must say, though, you come kind of courtesy of MSC, Michigan Soccer Central. You've been doing a lot of work with them. That is a great podcast. I highly recommend you guys go listen to the podcast there. You guys are doing a great job at MSC. It's so fun to listen to. It's fun to watch. Make sure you join up on their social channels as well. Twitter is very active for some of the games. So we're going to get those guys on, the MSC guys on soon. Hopefully all you guys can come on. We'll do a live We Are Soccer and have some fun talking about youth soccer in the state.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And let's just shout out for MSC, like Dan Garnell. Like,
Yeah,
I know
Dan.
a lot of people know him, but like, I mean, that guy works his tail off, getting out to games and taking photos and
So knowledgeable and so awesome.
so
yeah.
passionate about the game.
great-
And Josh Hockelai as
Great,
well.
friendly guy.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so big shout out to MSC. We'll get you guys on very soon. I believe we're going to be debuting a kind of a segment with MSC and We Are Soccer very soon. We'll hopefully debut that next week. We'll see if that comes off.
Awesome.
So Brooks, thank you again for joining. Very much appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Nate, thank you for being here and plugging Stuttgart. I'm not sure how much they're paying you, but it's not enough.
All of nothing. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that'll wrap it up, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.